bad, but you know, it's always you would do it just a little bit differently.
Job now of responding to the needs of the citizens in Calgary and Canmore and High River and so on. The question is, what do we do now about the future? Our intention is to produce proceedings from this event and submit them to all levels of government within the next 2 weeks. So we think a very important part of this process is public engagement, hence this event. So we would like to begin by acknowledging our good friends at the Canadian Croatian Club here of Calgary. We're just delighted they've agreed to host this event for us, and they have been busy on the subject of flood prevention. They have been busy raising funds, and I'm going to call upon the President, Rada Saradovic. He has a presentation he would like to make.
On behalf of the Canadian Red Cross for such a generosity in times where Canadian Red Cross responded to the largest disaster in Canadian history, and also this was the largest fundraiser in the history of Canadian Red Cross, and I'm very delighted to accept this check and to have Croatia included in this biggest fundraising activity in Canada. This donation is very meaningful personally to me. One reason is because I had a chance to go to High River and actually give out those basic cleanup kits to those affected.
The Gronewell report was commissioned by the province. Some excellent recommendations in it, and it fizzled. No action was taken, a deliberate policy decision was taken, and if someone here from the province would like to comment, and that's great. Maybe it didn't fizzle completely, but certainly some of the major recommendations were not acted on. So we'll and I'm not offering that as a criticism, I'm just making an observation. John Cotter, who wrote the book From Good to Great and 3 other important books, said all change fails because of a lack of urgency. And my point is this: we want to sustain a lack of urgency until we're comfortable and satisfied that our wonderful city cannot be at risk as it was this year. So how many of you, by the way, just a curiosity, were impacted directly by the flood themselves? Let's see a show of hands. So it looks like about 20%. How many knew someone that was impacted? All of us did. How many knew many people that were impacted? I counted myself 17 people, 17 friends that I know had to move out. Some of them still have not moved back. I had the tragic incident of a friend who just lost her husband 6 months ago. Put her house up for sale and then the house was completely lost. What a personal tragedy. And we all know those tragedies one-on-one. It's hard to imagine it happened here in Calgary. I was in City Council in 1980 when we approved the flood plan for Calgary-Bowness area structure plan. And I remember the anger by owners that we're imposing a 1 in 100 year flood plan risk. 1 in 100 years, and of course that was the accepted norm. Yet we all noticed in Colorado this week and last week, a 1 in 500 year flood occurred. So something's happening with the climate. We all know it's not just an opinion, it's very real. I think one of the things that's interesting for me is, in my living as a professional speaker, I work in healthcare, and I'm in the United States every week somewhere. And inevitably somebody says, well, why do you live in Calgary and you do so much work in the US? And I said, have you been to Calgary? It's a wonderful city. And then I go on to say all the reasons people should come here, and then I say, but you know, one great thing about Calgary is we don't have hurricanes, we don't have tornadoes, we don't have all these natural disasters, except I can no longer say we don't have floods. Who would have imagined? So it's changed a little bit. I remember during the Calgary Centennial, there was a song about commission for the Calgary Centennial, and in the song it said, Calgary was an Indian word for clear running water, which it isn't. But ironically, it's the dirty running water that has become the biggest threat to us for the future. So, the $10 billion question facing all of us now is, if we knew we could have prevented this, if we, the province, we, the city, knew a year ago that we could have prevented this and it would have cost us $5 billion, would we have paid it? If we knew with certainty that it was going to happen, would we have paid it? Well, we don't know for sure. But my question now is, there's a pretty good certainty it's going to happen again. What are we going to do to prevent it, whatever the cost? One of the things I've learned in what I do is that when people are faced with crisis, they can either be paralyzed or they can be energized. And I've noticed this city has become energized, and the Calgary Leadership Forum believes so much in this, we sponsored this event today. One of our members and chair of the social media committee for this event, Steve Chapman, sent me a note, and he said it would be very timely to remember George Santana's cautionary warning, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Therein is the challenge. So, we have a representative from the city, a representative of the province. Our representative from the city, Richard, is not here yet, so we'll call upon him when he arrives. But to represent the province of Alberta, the MLA for Calgary-Bow, would you please welcome Alana DeLong.
Much, Brian. And I came just to mainly to educate myself. This is an issue that is very dear to my constituents, since my constituency includes Bowness, which was hit very hard. And so I'm sure that if there are any people from that area, they would say, gee, Alana, you really should have been here. So I'm here.
Now to introduce our convener, Dennis. Let's give her a round.
Thank you, Brian. Well, one of the great things about organizing events is the great people that you meet and get to know. I feel that with my meeting of our convener, Mr. Richard Westbury. It was immediately apparent to me that Richard has a no-nonsense, yet witty approach to life that has been